I see Mr. Johnson came in with a brake problem. 70,000 miles, I'm not surprised. Probably time for another set.
Yeah, it's your typical front wheel brake job. And before you ask, I've already checked all the parts, fluids, hoses, and brake lines.
And?
And like I said, this job will require new pads and rotors in the front.
You might be right, but you haven't recorded the specs or the actual measurements, so...
I know, but all you have to do is take a look and you can see the situation. I mean, this is a no-brainer.
Yeah, maybe to a tech, but not to Mr. Johnson. Brake repairs are serious business, and they're not cheap. To make him confident in our estimate, we have to show him all the facts. I mean, sure, I could say you need brakes, but we don't do that. By showing him the specs and comparing them to the actual measurements, we validate our inspection and take away any doubts Mr. Johnson might have about saying yes to the job.
I understand. And you know what? I'll go ahead and measure the rear brakes too. Customer should have the whole story.
Absolutely. He'll be back around lunchtime. I'm sure he's anxious to find out what we found and how much it's going to cost to fix it.
So the front pads must be replaced. I figured that. But why the rotors? Don't you just grind them down smooth?
Well, Mr. Johnson, sometimes that's an option. But look at the inspection report again. You see where the front pad measurements are lower than the specs?
Uh-huh. That's why there's a B in the red box, right?
Right. The brake pads are worn below the spec, so they must be replaced. Now, see this line, rotor thickness? Same thing. The actual measurement was lower than the discard spec.
So if it's already lower, there's no option other than to replace it, right?
That's right. Now in the rears, situation's a little different. The pads are worn close to the minimum spec, but not at or below it. So, based on our inspection standards, we would suggest you replace them, but it's not required.
And the rotors are okay in the back, right?
Yes, there's enough left to machine those, so we'd do that. Here's the estimate for the whole job. Front and rear pads, plus front rotors and labor.
And if I just do the fronts?
Well, you'd subtract this amount, but before you decide, consider that the rear pads are going to require replacement fairly soon. And that means another visit, which I'm sure is inconvenient. Plus, if we do the whole job now, you'll have new brakes all around and one less thing to deal with in the future.
You're right. This is inconvenient, and eliminating a future visit sounds good to me. Plus, I can get it all done right now. Let's do the complete job.
Good idea. We'll have it for you when you come back tonight.
And do you think you could squeeze in an oil change too?
Sure. We'll do a routine inspection on maintenance items and check your owner's manual for suggested services. I'll call you with the results.